See that 4-game stretch, Orlando, Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Charlotte. He was 22 of 27. Of course, he took that step back that you mentioned, so he just needs to get a little more consistent. So you broke down Blake Griffin's game. You expect him to have a big game tonight, don't you?
Absolutely. When anything's on the line, Blake comes to play, and he wants to come play well in front of his hometown guys. And to me, he's the ultimate professional in that he comes to play every single night. He may not have a great shooting night, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you what, he's going to play hard, and we're going to see something spectacular tonight.
All right, we're going to go to break. When Clippers Live returns, we have a very special segment as we celebrate Black History Month. We'll give you the story of John Smith. You don't want to miss it.
This salute to Black History Month is presented by the United States Marine Corps, the few, the proud, the Marines.
Well, I would always ask the question. I looked at my father. I remember we used to watch Golden Gloves, and at that time it was real good. And that's the only time I would see somebody of color on TV back in the 50s. And I asked him, I said, how come we're not on TV? And my dad said, that's just the way it is. And I said, well, that's not right.
From an early age, John Smith recognized the injustice of racism in America. His father served in the Navy during World War II, and once out of the military, he took whatever job he could find, often working overnight as a school janitor to help make ends meet for his wife and 4 children.
Yeah, I saw my dad work with whites and everything. I saw how he conducted himself. He was never afraid, never backed down. He was an example for me. So when I would get into a situation where someone may have been around a black person that was subservient to someone because of their white, I didn't fit that mold.
By the 1960s, Black Americans were increasingly taking a bolder stance against racial and human rights issues at home and abroad. More had become educated, and as a result, were using high-profile platforms to express themselves. John was a track star at UCLA in 1968 when Americans Tommie Smith and John Carlos stood on the medal stand at the Mexico Olympic Games, raised their gloved fist high into the air, and lowered their heads. It was a proud moment to be black, Smith thought to himself as he watched the event from his dorm room in Westwood. 4 years later, Smith was at the top of his game. He held the world record in the 440-yard dash. But just weeks before the Olympics were to begin in Munich, he strained a muscle in a warm-up meet.
Well, in 1972, I was favored actually to win. I had beaten everybody out there. Right when I hurt myself, it was almost like I could see the medallion with wings flapping off to nothingness, and I just said, in that one moment I said, you doubted yourself.
10 days after the games began, 8 Palestinian guerrillas broke into the Olympic Village and took 11 members of the Israeli Olympic contingent hostage. By the end of the following day, all the Israelis had been murdered.
It let me realize that there's strife in other parts of the world as well. And it made me realize that there's something a little more important than maybe winning a gold medal.
Following the massacre, the games were suspended. But at the insistence of IOC President Avery Brundage, they resumed 34 hours later. Smith and teammates Wayne Collette and Vince Matthews were the favorites in the 400-meter finals.
On the first 80 meters, I pulled up, and Wayne and Vinny went by me. Wayne looked at me, and I said, go. I yelled at him. And when they finished, both of them ran over to me because I was sitting there in full tears.
Matthews finished first. Collette a close second.
And they actually came back to me and asked me, was I all right? I said, I'm all right, man, go. You enjoy your medal and so forth, because I was like totally just disgusted with how it all turned out. And I watched it on the sands and I just like, here we go again.
Just as in 1968, Matthews and Collette chose the moment of the playing of the national anthem to make a statement against human rights abuse.
They stood up there and it was kind of half-hearted. Wayne didn't have his clothes on. Vincent looked half-heartedly. They really didn't pay attention to the anthem. And I think the intent was right, but what they did was didn't have any uniform. And with me not being there, I think that threw it all off. A lot of people who don't know me, they were like, "Oh, you wouldn't have done that up there." I said, "You don't know me very well."
The IOC viewed their actions disrespectful and kicked them both out of the Olympics. Without them, the U.S. couldn't field a 4x400-meter relay team. John Smith's Olympic dreams had been dashed. He continued to compete until 1980. In '83, Smith returned to the UCLA track as a coach, helping the men's squad win NCAA titles in 1988 and '89, and producing 9 individual national champions in his 18 seasons in Westwood. On the world stage, he has trained track's most promising stars to an unparalleled 28 Olympic and World Championship gold medals.
All right, let's go. Set, go. Turn it over. Turn it over.
He's passionate about what he does, and I also think that comes from John Smith also running. You know, not just being a coach, he was also an athlete. So he knows what he wants out of you. He knows how to push your buttons and say certain things that might tick you off, and you go out there and run faster.
He really tailors his coaching and his workouts. He doesn't really talk to each of us the same way. So, you know, he finds a point of reference to relate to, and then from there, you know, you build a relationship with the coach, and that's what enhances the training.
Maurice Green, Otto Bolden, Tori Edwards, among others, have excelled under the guidance of John Smith. Carmelita Jeter joined Team Smith in 2008, and at the age of 31, became a world champion for the first time.
It's always good to have a coach that doesn't stop coaching when practice is over. You know, it's great to have a coach that doesn't, that still puts you into his life after track, that still calls you, that if he knows he can see you're having a bad day, hugs you, calls you on the phone, "Hey, what's going on? You know, I noticed you were a little quiet today." You know, and it's good to have somebody that notices these things instead of someone just only cares about what time you're running.
One thing about John is not only does he prepare you physically, he prepares you mentally. And trust me, if you're not mentally tough, you're not going to be able to get through John Smith's workouts.
Smith was drawn to track because of the singular nature of the sport. He alone would be responsible for his success or failure. He found his motivation from society's inequalities. The stimulus for today's athletes has evolved.
I tap into things, I try to reach to find it. Once I find something, we're gonna ride with it. And then it starts, now what you do is you take it and you smooth it out. But the problem you're gonna have is you can't use anger to be your motivator. So now you have to transfer it into the malevolence of your actions into benevolence. And you have to move it from anger to love.
There's literally no avenue or no corner of track and field that John hasn't touched. So, you know, that inherently means you have to look up to him. You know, athletes come and go, you know, coaches come and go, but somehow John Smith just stays here and stays the same.
We are celebrating Black History Month by shining a light on individuals who have made an impact on our society. An LA native, John Smith's contributions to the sport of track and field and his efforts to be a voice against injustice began in the 60s and continue to this day. Coming up next, Clippers Live continues. The Hunter, John Wall, and the Hunted, Chris Paul. John Wall versus Chris Paul. Wizards and Clippers. Clippers Live, coming up next.
Be there live for the most exciting season in the history of the Los Angeles Clippers. Single game tickets now on sale. Visit Ticketmaster.com or call 800-4-NBA-TIX.